Let's start, and we have Orchard 1. 1.10.3 has been released. Orchard project.net. So if you open your dashboard on 1.10.3 on 1.10 on 1, you should see that now. Okay, latest version 1.10.3. This is the release where you can download it, and the release notes with everything. So thanks Benedek again for handling that. The next step being releasing the dev branch, so 1.11. That will follow. I don't know when, but yeah, Benedek said there is lots of work to do, so we'll see how it goes. Questions? No question. Can you hear me?
Sure.
Thank you. It was super silent, like everybody was muted. No sound, nothing. And nothing on Orchard 1 for the past week. We'll do a triage. I saw pull request to fix a simple issue. So that's good. Orchard core. Orchard core. So checking out the dev branch just to focus on what has been merged already. There are lots of PRs, but most of them are waiting for beta 3 to be shipped. I don't want to take any risk. Gabor is muted. We'll unmute him later. Okay, so what happened during the past week? Many things. Fixing plural translation exceptions. I don't think we talked about it. The issue was that if you were to translate half of the text and it will not find the plural form, it will throw an exception. So now it's just falling back to the closest number of the closest plural form based on the number of items you want to display, and just logging a warning saying, yeah, you might have missed translation text. And then setting liquid encodings explicitly. We talked about it. Oh yes, I showed the PR. Okay, and I showed the PR and I showed the different ways to encode. So everything is encoded accordingly to the thing that Liquid is generating: HTML, JavaScript, freeform, and that's better for security. Fixing loading async for known parts. There was an issue that since a change I made 2 weeks ago, which was to, let me see, fixing loading async. This is so that the loading async event is triggered correctly. It was not triggered, so this is fixed. And again, I think I already talked about this one, maybe a PR which was already existing and that we merged. This one is to fix. It's like everything I'm saying here, I already showed that. Am I wrong, right? Fix wrong language label on this repository, we talked about it, or maybe again because it was a PR we looked at last week. To fix the list of JavaScript libraries that we import should not be taking part of the number of lines of codes we write. Guide section to docs. So Matthias made the PR. There is a new section. Yeah, it was how-tos and we renamed it to guides. And and let me show you how it looks like, because I hope you like it. I assume you will like it. So Orchard core documentation, if you go on the dev branch for documentation, and you go at the bottom, I assume at some point we will make it more prominent. And here, guides, it explains what it is. It's very inspired from Spring Boot's guides. It explains what a guide is, and we will have two kinds of guides: the getting started guides, which are 15 to 30 minutes explanations, so small articles about doing small tasks, and tutorials, which are 2 to 3 hours tasks, okay, like big things. We have one already that Matthias made, running code on startup. So let's say, how do I run some code on startup? How to run tasks on application startup from a module. Then it explains how it works, the interface you need to implement, and shows an example, a fully functional example, okay, with all the usings, so I'm not missing anything, because if you just provide a class, then if you don't have the IntelliSense, you might miss some usings. An example that is logging modular tenant event, and it shows how to register this class. And what is missing right now is some output of the logging. I talked about that with Matthias, and I think it's my bad. Maybe I removed it and it was there before. So yeah, the goal is that to have something that people can copy paste, follow as a tutorial, and have all the lines of code you need, and also show the output if you don't want to run it by yourself. Okay. So this one is about running something on application startup, and we'll have more of these. I added 2 examples for tutorials. They are not done, but this is what a tutorial should be, like building a website from a web template. Remember, I did a video about that, and that would be a nice tutorial that people would follow, like download the template HTML, create a new project, copy the files, then create a layout file, start the CMS, and so on. Implementing a self-service SaaS solution, same thing. Tutorial, how to build something. We don't have a module. How should you make it, or your own module? Because maybe there is a module, but it's not doing what you want. But let's show the SaaS feature with that. So that's just examples. We might never do that, but just to show what kind of a tutorial would be, like a long, something that is longer than just a quick guide. Matthias is already working on another one, which will be around the lines of creating a new project, a new modular application, okay, like a small guide, new modular application from the .NET template to creating a new module, enabling the module, and starting it. And then we might also want to split it for the framework guides and the CMS guides. Okay, so we have to, once we have more examples, more articles, I'm sure we'll have to do a separation. We'll see how it goes. Good. I assume everyone will like it, and feel free to suggest what you would like to see here. Okay. Sometimes it's not like reference documentation where we just show all the values. Like if I take shapes or liquid, where is shapes or liquid? Liquid, you see it's more about reference documentation here, listing all the values you can use. Okay, it's not explaining how to use them most of the time. It's not. If you just take that, you're like, well, where and why, and so the tutorials are more step by step. The guides are more step-by-step explanations on how to do things. And in there, we might reference the reference documentation for specific parts, like show an example for doing a specific task and just explain, oh, but if you want to do more things like this, here is the reference documentation that shows you all the filters, for instance, for liquid. Good. And now we have a section, feel free to create new articles like this. Okay. It's not easy, but that's super useful for the new users, and also for us whenever we have we see a question, we can just ideally point them to a tutorial like this. So that's the new section that has been added. here, add guide section to the documentation, reusing the same part instances. Okay, so this is a change that allows us to reuse the same part instance. So whenever we load a content item, it will and it goes through a driver either for displaying or editing. Before this PR, it will create many instances of the same part. So it would instantiate the part based on a JSON document many times. Like each driver will get its own part, and then we will call apply to reflect it to the previous JSON document. This PR fixes it by introducing the notion of a sort of an identity map for parts of a content item. That's called elements, and yeah, so this should make things better in terms of reusing the same part for performance. And also, if you change a part during an event, you'll get the same instance with the same changes, so it will retain the state during the request. It won't lose it. That was the main issue that was blocking Bertrand, for instance. So this is fixed. Fix bug workflow JavaScript workflow script evaluator by Siamand, which is that if this is null, return null, or there will be an exception, maybe, probably. Remove temporary configuration of Google option to react to a change in 2.2.3, I think, of ASP.NET. Update shape cache tag from Jean-Thierry. So when I created the liquid tags for shape caching, I did too much copy-paste, and and everything was named with expiry after instead of sliding. And same thing here. No, here is different. Here is the opposite. So he just looked at the code and found all the big issues. This one, it was a contribution. Oh, someone filed a bug and it was an NC fix, so I fixed it directly. A bad name here. Fixing tenant API controller Swagger support, because when you will use Swagger in this case, there will be name conflicts. Swagger could not figure out which method to call on the get, so now it's explicitly set. Updating fluid. So I didn't want to take it for beta 3, but I had to because someone found a bug that I had to fix in this branch, so I took it. The bug was, what was the bug with fluid? I don't recall. What's the last bug I fixed? Nested for loops. Yes. Nested for loops. So if you had a for loop inside a for loop, this property, the for loop property, will be rewritten by the inner for loop, and that will break everything. So I had to fix it. And also outside of the for loop, the second one, you will lose the for loop property. So that's bad. So I fixed it, and because I fixed it, I decided to update fluid in core with all the other changes it includes, which are big breaking changes. So all the filters, instead of returning a task, return a value task for performance reasons. The big improvement here is that it's twice as fast as before. Everything is at least twice as fast as before to render liquid, and takes much less memory, so that's good. Only add a user claim when it is not present, because otherwise it will be added on every request or on every token refresh. So this is fixed by Hank with the help of Kevin. Fix BlobFileStore from Thierry, who is super active this past week. I'd like to know what he's doing. He's doing many things, fixing lots of bugs, looking at the code, super nice. Yeah, so here in this case, apparently it was expecting a specific marker file, so it changed the code so it doesn't use any marker file anymore to make it more robust. This one is a fix to a previous PR that was reusing the content elements, the content parts, and this fix is that, well, you could not store any field. It will just overwrite any fields you will have set during edition. So that was bad. So I had to fix it, and I found the reason. So that's good. The reason is that when you are editing a content item, it will create a new one calling NullAsync. And NullAsync will invoke the activating async, which will populate the parts with empty parts. And because they are empty, they will not be loaded from the JSON after that. So we should not call NullAsync in this case. Then this changed to use JDeliver as the CDN for font awesome. And here I see a typo, unless it's not a typo. Is that a typo or not a typo? Ah, God. It's not a typo. It's font awesome. Not sure yeah, it's on purpose. That's weird. So to use JDeliver, because we used to use for this one fontawesome.com, but in China the perf is really bad. So they found that JSDeliver provides a very good performance in China and everywhere else. And I checked on some CDN comparison site, and apparently JSDeliver is good everywhere. It's second to Google Cloud CDN for every region, and almost the same as Google Cloud CDN. So that's good. So we're now using it. I didn't want to include FontAwesome because that will mean 1,000 more files, and that will mean also verifying that we can ship FontAwesome. That will be an issue. And also fixed this bug at the same time with the signal task, the signal event in the workflow. Interrupt me if you have questions. Use NullStringLocalizer by default in the CMS. Thanks, Jean-Thierry. So on Friday, I had 1 hour to kill, and I'm like, let's do some perf investigation on Orchard Core before we ship, because we made it fast, but we made it fast without working on making it fast. We just took the decisions, some decision that that Orchard Core would be fast with those decisions, but we never measured how we could make it faster. So I took just 1 hour to see the bottlenecks, and I found two main issues which are almost fixed now. One is this one. So sorry, let me just notification, can't remove that. The main issue I saw was that if you will run Orchard Core right now, even without localization, the localization module enabled, because it's using MVC. In MVC we add localization. Okay, we call add localization, which will register the services to localize strings with the view localizer in the views and the string localizer for the services. Okay, so we have when you resolve iString localizer, you have an instance of something, and this something is by default a resource string manager, not the resx files. So it's using the resx files provider. And it's funny because we already mentioned that in some stack trace that we will see lots of resource string lookups for every time we will localize something, even though we haven't enabled localization. The idea is that, let me see if I will show you an example. So not all web applications use the view localization, which is fine. Oh, Skype failed. Am I still with you? Are you still with me? I saw an error. Looks like, okay. So if I take any view, like an admin view, where can I have an admin view? Alias, views, part edit. So every time we're under a string, we call T, which is a view localizer. Okay, and every time we are in a controller or in another class, we use the string localizer, not the view localizer. But T here in this case is a view localizer, iView localizer. And even if we haven't enabled localization or we don't have localization of your files, then what it will do, it will use this string as the output. Okay, and that's fine. But if we haven't enabled localization and support for the PO files, this T won't be a no-op operation. It will be the resource string localizer. And this guy showed up in the profile when I did that on Friday as the top memory hog. Like there were more custom attributes generated by the resource localizer than strings generated to render a blog post. And that's bad. So I found the issue to be in the resource string localizer. I filed an issue on the repository. I haven't fixed it yet. And in the meantime, to fix it in Orchard, at least in Orchard CMS, I asked Jean-Thierry to do this change, which is to create, oh, let's go back here, which is to create a null localizer implementation and register it automatically during the add Orchard CMS. So when you do add Orchard CMS, so for the CMS part, we register a null string localizer, which means it won't localize from anything. It won't even use the resource files. And whatever for the CMS, we don't use resix files. So that's useless to try to use the resource major string localizer. So we just register a new one, which will take it above the default one. Okay. And then when we enable the localization module, it will register yet another one, which will be used in this case, which will take into account the PO files. Okay. So if you don't take this change, you can already have better performance by enabling the localization module. Enabling the localization module, we use the PO file provider, which is faster than the resource manager string localizer, doesn't allocate as much, and will mostly be a no-op, because if you don't have PO files, that's fine. So, and I could show you the perf improvement, but trust me, you'll get a lot better just enabling the localization module. It's crazy. Or take the latest dev, and that will be as fast. And the real fix is to fix the resource manager string localizer, so that all the MVC apps don't react to that. I filed an issue on the extensions repository of ASP.NET and what it was doing is that every time in every view or every service that will resolve a nice string localizer or iView localizer, it will do some reflection on the type, on every type, to find attributes. And this would incur some reflection code for every resolution of the service, for every request. So many times per request, it will do some reflection. The cache is done at the wrong layer. Okay, that was the issue. Then Thierry again, Thierry, not Jean-Thierry. Thierry fixed the HTTPS port default value, which was wrong. The code was wrong, and in Azure it will show as wrong. So it fixed it. I fixed the MVC sample, which was using a web config, and it should not, because it will be generated on build automatically, and we can set the in process for IS automatically also. And I also changed the templates to follow the same change for both templates, CMS and MVC. Prevent loading all workflow in the startup from CMS. So the ID, how can I say stop Skype? Skype stop? It's not even open. Notifications. Not stop. It's open in Skype. Oh my god. I don't know. Where was I? Prevent loading all workflow startup. So Siaman made this change, and the idea is that following the nice guide called how to run some code on startup, there is a new what? Where is that? HTTP request route activator, inheriting from modular tenant events, which is a new class here, that will load all the workflow instances or the workflow type that could wait for a webhook and register their route on the route provider, okay, on startup. And this fixes a memory leak, I could say. That was before, and also reorganizes the code so that it's not run in the startup code but on the startup of the tenant. As a reminder, when you start your application, all the tenant startups.cs will be executed, and when you hit the first request on a tenant, then it will load the middleware pipeline and execute the modular tenant events. Okay, it's like lazy loading. Update README to add a reference to add more examples of GraphQL when you load related content items, and you want to use this syntax to explain that it's using custom part, and you know the type of the items you are loading, so you want IntelliSense on that. IntelliSense, well, sorry, auto-completion, and also be able to access properties of the items you are loading. Because at the GraphQL level, it doesn't know what is the type. It just knows, okay, we have a list of content items, but you say it is a movie. So give me the name and the release year. Okay. And then the link to the file in the mkdocs. I think that's it. Let's remove the filter. Some PRs are going on. Improve startup task guide. This is Matthias working on the guides, and that's about it. Something I created yesterday. What should I call? So there is this PR that I will merge. Apparently it works. I tried it. So implementing content type permissions, because Jasper was blocked on that, and I was kind of ashamed that we don't have it already, because we have the secureable checkbox, but it's not used. So this PR implements the content type permissions, which means every time you have a content type that is marked as secureable, it will appear in the permissions, and you can grant permissions on specific content types. So you will remove the manage content altogether, like edit content or publish content, and then you can provide it at the content type level, and it will work. And it's also handling the ownership permissions also, which was not done before either, meaning you can grant permission on editing own content, which means people can, or like editing own articles, which means they can create articles. If you just provide editing on articles, they will be able to create articles and edit their own, but not publish them. Okay, like they can create drafts and everything, but yeah, that works. Yeah, you can try it. 1 second, someone is in the room.
Grab your stuff.
I am back. Someone had to pick a bag in the room. Yeah, so that's it. I will merge it soon. Jasmine has tested it. He says it's working for what he tried. I don't think he really tried. I think he said that it's hiding content types from the menu. Now it needs to check that people can't actually go into editing every content items and everything. But I tried it and it was working. Super nice, because you can see, for instance, in the blog the list, and when you try to edit it, no, you can't edit a blog post because I had removed the permission. You can't edit others' blog posts, but you could edit your own, meaning you could create a blog post and save a draft, and then if I would add the publish own blog post. Then he could publish the blog post. That was nice. Already done in Orchard 1, but at least now it's in Orchard Core also. And I think that's it. So we made a perf improvement. I made another one I didn't commit yet, which was on the caching code path, that there is an improvement to do. We are doing some allocations for nothing. I will fix it. It's an easy one. Just need to ensure that it's not breaking anything. I wasn't sure. And there is a last improvement we can do in terms of perf. It's not an improvement. It's more a recommendation. What I saw when I benchmarked the blog recipe, so the localization issue fixed, the caching issue I will fix it, and there was another one which was a JavaScript. So when we use the blog recipe, there is a layer that will inject the let me show you. I think David has that. David Hayden. This one. So he's using the blog recipe also. And at the bottom, he removed it. Okay, so exactly what I don't want to show. So at the bottom, when you use the clean blog theme, the blog theme recipe, there are 3 different social icons, Twitter, Facebook, and GitHub, I don't know. And this is injected by a layer. A layer is predicate that will be true or false. That says, do I need to inject some HTML based on a condition? And to evaluate this condition, we use JavaScript. So every request, all the layers will be evaluated. It's JavaScript, it's interpreted. It's fast, but it's not free. So if this is the most thing it has to do on a page, that will be the most thing, the slowest thing to do. So we can optimize it. So if you want, it was showing some perf allocations issue on Gint that we are using. I will fix that eventually. I have some ideas. But if you want to make it faster, then just don't use layers. If you don't need layers, don't use layers. Most of the time, when you want to inject something like a footer and you want to be able to edit it, so you don't want it in the layout, you can create a custom type called a section that will be a back part or a flow part. Let's say a flow part that you can build dynamically with custom widgets. Okay, and this section you can call it footer. So it will be a content item you call footer, and that will contain everything you want in the footer. You can edit it. You can manage permissions and versions and everything. That's fine. And then in the layout, you can render a content item. So you will load the content item by its alias and render it, because you know that you can do a if is on page, or for every page render the footer, and you don't need the layers. Okay, layers is super flexible, but if you don't need it, don't use layers, because it's slower than coding some liquid or some razor directly in the layout. Okay, that's just a trick for performance. Once I remove the layers, I fixed the null localization and the other caching allocations. I had doubled the throughput of the blog. So instead of going from 2,000 requests per second, I could reach almost 4,000 requests per second on the same site without caching the content items or the rendering. Just the menu is cached in this case. Okay, so that's it for the updates. In terms of release, we have one bug left blocking beta 3. It's a new one. It is about link menu item part customization. Apparently, when we moved to JSON recipe, recipe migration, we removed some code that was necessary to be able to customize it. I will have to repro that to understand why. Merging the content permissions, and that should be it, unless someone finds another issue that is blocking. But I hope not. Questions? No questions? Also, Jean-Philippe has started localization work, because we didn't get any news from the dev who said he had done that already and would create a PR. So Jean-Philippe took on himself and started again this work. So there is already a branch on his fork he shared on Gitter to show the progress, and Antoine already tried it, found an issue, and that's good. But there is some progress done on this side. So it should be quick. We should quickly have a localization branch for content items. No questions? Good. Then I don't think I missed anything. I don't know any new website. I saw one, but it's not public yet. So we'll talk more on Thursday for the triage. I will be there. And otherwise, next week, next Tuesday, which will still be with a weird hour for Europeans, I think, until the week after, maybe. Or maybe no, I don't know. You'll tell me, Antoine, you'll tell me, I don't know. I don't remember. You have to check. If Europe changes their time zone, then, well, their time, then for us it doesn't change. So remember that. Thanks everyone. Talk to you Thursday or next Tuesday. Bye bye. Thank you.